And we are recording. We are recording.
All right. Welcome to another episode of Drop Third Strike with myself, Terry Gant in Chicago, Illinois, and my podcast partner, Beth Davy-Stofka in lovely Denver, Colorado.
Hello. And it is lovely. It is lovely.
If it's relatively decent weather in Chicago today, I always feel like if it's decent weather in Chicago, Denver's got to have it even better, right? As you move further west, things have to improve. So it's chilly here, but sunny. I could do without the sun.
Well, we had our fifth largest snowstorm since records were kept 2 weeks ago, I think.
Wait, what?
Yep. And what's funny is when they put the 5 up with the dates and the snow totals, I'm like, wow, I have been here for 3 of those storms. So 3 out of 5, I have been here. So
we had like false spring. So like we had this thing where we absolutely got hammered with snow this year. And I feel like every 5 years we get like just dumped on with snow massively. But this year it was like, not only did we get dumped on, but we got dumped on in like quick succession. It would be like you would get 6 inches of snow, and then you'd have 4 days with no snow whatsoever. So you shovel it out, but then here comes another 6 inches, and then you would shovel that, and then it comes another 3 inches. You would shovel that, and then just when you thought it was over, here comes like 11 inches of snow, right? In like a 2-week period, you've gotten like 28 inches of snow or something. So all of our winter snowfall happened in a very short amount of time.
Oh, wow.
Then it all melted, and it was 70 degrees, right? And we were like, ah, damn, this is great. It's spring. And it actually fit with the calendar, right? It was like, you would think, hopefully March would be kind of nice. And here comes March being all nice and shit. And then the next thing you know, it got to be back in the fucking 20s and the low 30s and that kind of thing. And people were like, no, wait, what happened? And I remember
I think that was our storm, actually. I think that's what happened. Years. It came in because it doesn't, usually it came in off the West Coast.
Okay.
And storms, I mean, there were just some things going on north and south that made it awful. But, things usually get to the mountains, they come in off the west and they get to the mountains and they can't get over the mountains because the mountains are so high. So they dump everything on what they call the western slope.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? And so, because we're on the eastern side of the mountains, but this one made it over, and then you get this thing called the upslope condition, where it starts sucking in air off, a wind current, like jet stream current, off the western coast of Mexico, and that means that as the storm tries to move out, this air pocket and this airflow comes around and makes it keep turning back in on us.
Yeah, yeah.
So we got 20 inches here at our house, and that was in about a day.
Yeah.
So that was a big one.
Sucks.
And that was a lot of snow, and but it had been warm, so the streets kind of, I mean, it was bad, right? Like pretty much everything was shut down for a couple of days. But it wouldn't be like happening in the dead of winter where you get 3 inches of ice on the roads and it never breaks up because it was already warm before and after. So, but yeah, when that finally moved, I mean, I think it really created some havoc in Nebraska and in Iowa, and then it got to you and it was still happening. It was sucking stuff down from the far north, and yeah, we had ourselves a spring storm. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Well, so you had we talked before this.
Terry, I texted
Legion of Fan.
I texted you this morning, gave you a little time to think about this, and
yes,
frame things for Legion of Fan.
Yeah.
There is an author, a lawyer and writer and thinker by the name of David French, and he has published a book called I think it was last year. He published a book called "Divided We Fall," and his intent in that is to discuss how it is that this country is in danger of not having a civil war, but fracturing apart various separatist movements into an internal Cold War. It would be awful for us, obviously. So he has some solutions. But anyway, so all that aside, because we can't fix that, but not the podcast. But all that aside, he was building evidence. He provides a lot of different kinds of data for showing how this country is divided. And so when my husband woke me up this morning, the first thing he told me is that this one of the pieces of data is that blue the blue voting map in this country
Sure.
is essentially the same as the viewership map for Game of Thrones.
Yes.
And the red voting map in this country is basically the same as the viewership map of The Walking Dead. Mm-hmm. And then to follow up, make it even more interesting, blue voters map to the NBA and red voters map to college basketball. Mm-hmm. And at the NFL, it's mixed. And like Steve said, we all know how intense the fan rivalry is in the NFL. Right. Might reflect some of that. Yeah. He didn't talk about Major League Baseball, so we can at the end speculate on that. So I texted Terry, because not having watched either Game of Thrones or The Walking Dead, but Terry knowing about these things, I said, what do you think this means?
And having opinions about culture and people, right? So like more than anything, I like to cast wild ass speculation about folks I don't actually have to talk to.
Yeah.
that's kind of encapsulates their life experience in a way, right? I will do this at times. And the reason I think that, at least for the Game of Thrones Walking Dead part, and my perception of it would be this. One thing that people who watch Game of Thrones had to deal with, that people who watch, that prefer The Walking Dead, don't have to deal with, is complexity of plot, right? Folks who tend to live in red states don't strike me as the kind of people who really want to get into understanding complex political issues, right? And Game of Thrones is full of it, absolutely full of complex political issues, left, right, and center. Even if you were just watching Game of Thrones because you wanted to see a sword fight, or like somebody get hit with an arrow, or the occasional dragon showing up, right? Everything that happens in Game of Thrones happens for some political reason. There's someone vying for some level of power, someone owed some level of power, someone having no power whatsoever, but discovering they actually do. Like, there's a lot going on in Game of Thrones that actually sort of requires you to, like, you know, take your meatball fan hat off and really pay attention to what's going on, right? It's why, like, I tell friends of mine, there are two shows they have to absolutely watch, because they are two of the best things that have ever happened in television. And neither is going to go on forever. In fact, one of them's already done, one's almost over. And that's watch The Wire and watch The Expanse, right? Mm-hmm. And it's because, like, in terms of television complexity and having a show hit issues that affect actual people and frame it in terms of, like, in the case of The Expanse, they're framing it in a dispute between people living on Earth, people living on Mars, and people living in an asteroid belt, right? They frame it as these three people don't like each other, but the actual thing going on is so much more complex. It's how these groups develop separately, what their ideas are about their own destinies, and what are their ideas about political power and the ability of self-determination, right? Like, that's a lot to have to really write into episodic television. And when you do it really well, you come up with some of the best television ever done. And The Wire did the exact same thing. It just framed it around the war on drugs, right? Yeah. Game of Thrones does this. It only falls down on the part where, like, you could see the producers needing more boobs, having to add any number of, 1 to 3 more, like, human rights violations against people who don't have very much power. Like, there's things they put into that show visually didn't need to be there.
Okay.
To the level it was, but take that out, and the complexity of plot and things that move people and structure is highly complex. And it's the kind of thing that people in red states just aren't necessarily known for giving too much of a shit about. Like, particularly when you consider, like, actual politics and what affects the lives of people moving forward in this country, right? Red state folks just feed me the Cliff Notes, right? Oh, those are bad people. Great, I'm good. Like, I'll vote against every damn thing that they have coming for them, except that you discover later on, well, you discover it, they don't necessarily understand it, but they're actually voting against their own interests so many times, right? Mm-hmm. The Walking Dead, on the other hand, is a show that, while it has complex interpersonal shit happening, primarily, The Walking Dead aren't the zombies. The Walking Dead are the people, but people watch The Walking Dead waiting for the zombie attacks.
Okay.
Right? They're waiting for the high drama moments. They're waiting for, like, the human terror, right? That fills The Walking Dead. And honestly, if you live in a blue state, you're more than likely over that shit. You know, like I don't have to watch The Walking Dead because at some point, so many people I know are literally doing some form of suffering, right?
Yeah.
Like they're in some marginalized group already. You know, I don't necessarily have to watch TV shows that just tell me everybody here is menaced.
Yeah.
You know, like I drop those shows because seeing people just trying to make a life, right, constantly terrorized is a little too much like my actual life, right? So I
Yeah.
don't.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that Steve will watch that I don't watch, and I've put it in different terms, but that's essentially what I say every time is I don't need to see that in my entertainment
Yeah,
because life's like that. Even
yeah,
if not for me, in some sense it is for me, you know, it is for lots of people I know and lots of people I have known, right? So yeah, that's sort of the basic good versus evil. There's a menace, somebody's gonna come out and get you, and I'm gonna hear a lot of screaming. It's like that's
and
that's life.
essentially for both shows, when both shows began, I'm betting the viewership group was spread out, right? Like the
Yes.
show started so hot that like there are people in a lot of like I'm sure that George R. R. Martin has readers all over the country, yeah.
Uh-huh.
But for writing super dense books about like politics and effectively just bastardizing the War of the Roses, like for doing that, you're gonna find people who aren't necessarily a bunch of like you know like the hunters and fishers and hunters and fishermen and NASCAR scene. They're not really gonna go in for that long term, right? Hey, what's Game of Thrones about? I don't know. It's a dude swinging swords and you know some dude sleeping with his sister and there's a little person and I don't get it. I don't get what's happening, right? What's the deal with The Walking Dead? Ah shit, like you know Atlanta is like the center of it a lot. Like the South is the center in a lot of cases. Um, there's a lot of like southern cities that have to do with like what's going on in Atlanta, right? So like it's centered almost in like their world, and then it's also like they basically get down to business with like people treating people like along direct lines of power that are overt, right? There's nothing hidden there, you know? Like, yeah, I can see that eventually being the kind of thing that absolutely just like works for Game of Thrones viewers, you know,
That's
and
interesting.
for Walking Dead viewers rather.
To say, just to, I'm not going to say I'm sticking up for the red voter because I don't don't really know that many, which is probably part of the problem too.
Right, right.
You know, talking about the separation, the conflict, and everything. We don't really mingle, do we? But I kind of think that it might not be that they aren't interested in nuance. It's just that they aren't confronted with it that often.
Yeah, and yeah, it's not that there's lack of interest, but like you kind of for some of these TV shows really do you can let's say you're watching the Marvel movies, right? Marvel has a lot of fans for the MCU, and there's totally like a thing where for the most part people are really watching it because they find Tony Stark to be cute or Steve Rogers to be hot or the Winter Soldier to be hot, right? But there are folks who really did this extra level of work to like drill down and try to figure out Thanos's motivations and the Infinity Stones and all this kind of stuff. And a lot of people just went there for the popcorn, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you could probably do some form of like mapping, not along the country red or blue as to like which of you are the popcorn people and which of you are the motivation people. What I would wonder about that is what groups of people in the country split over things like does Thanos' motivations make sense, right? Versus the popcorn people, right?
Yeah.
Does Tony Stark's actions and motivations make sense from his based on his worldview from the popcorn versus cuteness? You know what I mean? And I think that you would find that there's also a similar divide in the country. If you've got people who are well read, who are like really involved in sort of like social justice movements and things like that, like some of this stuff you'd have to find it kind of hard to like just cheer the good guy and cheer the bad guy when you're actually seeing this stuff on a screen. I would guess.
You know, I gotta go do a little bit of a counterpoint to that because one of the colleges I teach at, the student body is very red, and oftentimes rural, oftentimes even feeding their families to an extent off hunting and fishing. And they have to, because I teach an ethics class there, and they have to do this PowerPoint assignment in the middle of the term when they pick a character from popular culture. They explain the moral dilemma that the character is or represents, and then they have to run through like 6 different ethical frameworks and propose how that character would behave if that was that character's ethical framework, right? And I mean, I am so tired of reading Infinity Wars presentations, because since Infinity Wars aired, I probably read, I don't know, I'm going to say I read 20 of those a year. And
I get exhausted by this too, because it's like,
but they're
man,
all
like
really interested in Thanos. They're all really interested in what Thanos is doing and whether it's moral or not.
it's one of these things where I've said for a long time, in the case of Thanos, it would honestly have made it clearer for people if they really did use Thanos's comic book motivation in the movie. Right? By letting Thanos frame himself as effectively an environmentalist, right? Now people have this weird thing where they want to be like, well, you know, he kind of has a point. You know, when you think about it, it's like, no. Genocide's not an environmental issue. Right? Like, now, why do I have to explain that to you? You're an adult. Yeah. You should know that, right? Immediately, we got to be done talking about that.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, but those folks, like, now you're dealing with people who they're not dealing with genocide or environmental issues or any of these other things in their daily lives on a regular basis. So to them, it's a cut and dry thing that needs to be like, well, not a cut and dry. It's one where he's not just a nihilist. Like, if we did lose half the people on the planet, wouldn't the other half really be better off? And it's like, well, that is a pretty shitty worldview right there, buddy.
Yeah.
Don't forget, you don't get to pick who the other half are. Right? Like, you could be in the half that goes. What you want is you want half the world gone, and you want their stuff.
Yeah.
Right?
Now, I'm going to remember to put that in my feedback comments this time around, because I'm going to be grading a bunch of those next week.
Everyone wants to, they want to take that Thanos thing like, well, you know, he's just a gardener.
I want to defend my students, because they often do conclude that it's genocide that Thanos really does have in mind, and that they think that that's ultimately wrong, but they do take him seriously. So yeah. We do have that where people are taking their popular culture characters seriously. I don't personally think that Thanos is the most interesting, or to analyze the moral challenge in a Marvel movie. I can't figure out, to me, the most interesting thing you could write about is whether Iron Man had a right to kill the Winter Soldier or not.
Or to attempt to kill him.
Yeah. Or
yeah.
Is that even the solution to Iron Man's problem with the Winter Soldier?
And the way that comes about is he finds out that the person that he knew was brainwashed, that he knew wasn't in control of his actions, that he knew was basically a puppet for like an enemy of his country and of his family and all that stuff. He knew this person was made to do things they weren't in control of, and ultimately had killed his parents, right? So what he does in that moment is he tries to kill the victim of a brainwashing, right? Which now, that's one of those points where it's like, well, okay, that's not necessarily the act of a good person there.
Right.
And honestly, faced with all this actual evidence, this is entirely the wrong thing to do.
Exactly.
Right? He's as much a victim as your damn parents are.
Exactly. You know, I remember years ago, I told you, you know what, Terry, I just hate Tony Stark. And you were like, you need to give him another chance. I'm like, nope, I really hate that guy.
Well, but years ago when you said that, that was before Robert Downey Jr. even become Tony Stark, I think. We were talking about that. It was the various depictions of Tony Stark in comic book form. The most popular ones effectively had him more like kind of a industrialist James Bond, right? Like he would kind of be the CEO of a company, super sexy dude with like, you know, but like largely like a Bruce Wayne with a heart problem, more or less.
Yeah.
Right. But more than willing to be seen as Bruce Wayne. And Bruce Wayne doesn't even want to go outside. Like Bruce Wayne's almost agoraphobic. Bruce Wayne just wants to be Batman all the time. He wants to be perpetually night. He's not trying to go out and do Bruce Wayne's job. Tony Stark can't wait to go out and do Tony Stark's job. He wants you to see him as Tony Stark constantly. And then if he needs to be Iron Man, even better. That man's ego knows no bounds. He is utterly unlikable. Right? He's unrelatable. You know, this is the thing. I talk with Marvel fans all the time, and they're like, I find the Marvel characters just more relatable. It's like, well, Tony Stark is not relatable.
No.
You don't know anyone like Tony Stark. If your parents, if your dad or mom were like Tony Stark, you be in therapy twice a week.
Yep, totally. And I have been actually in therapy twice a week in the past, so that's saying a lot. Maybe that's why I don't like Tony Stark. Maybe
you can't make heroes of complete selfish narcissists. By which the right thing to do is the thing that they're doing at any particular point in time. If they're doing it, it's the right thing, and their solutions don't involve you making choices.
Right.
Right, like that kind of is the Tony Stark thing, and this is also the Game of Thrones thing. In Game of Thrones, if you were the average person in the world of Game of Thrones, you would find that there are people, and this comes up overtly in Game of Thrones a lot. Your life is entirely controlled by people you will never meet, right? Who are as likely to make a decision with the stroke of a pen that destroys your life, or just march an army right through your town and run you over, right? Well, on their way to solve some petty dispute that's been going on for 300 years in their family, right? You don't matter to those people, but the complexity involved is still very great, and I can see that being why they're blue statey, right? Yeah. In the NBA, it was like the NBA skewed more blue state.
Blue,
yeah. The NBA skews blue, I suspect, because these days the NBA also has a very clear and high level of like social awareness, right? They have not just a bunch of black players, and they are all over the country. So their black players are playing in Atlanta, their black players are playing in Florida, right? So like they don't just have black players in like the northern parts. They're a majority black league with a heavy foreign influence in terms of European players and players from other countries as well, right? Yeah. And they speak up a lot about social issues, and they're very well marketed. And people who live in red states have been conditioned now that this is the wrong thing to do, to shut up and dribble, right? So shut up and dribble will be a bunch of people who will shy away from the NBA because now it's perceived that those dark-skinned millionaires have too much damn power, and who wants to deal with that, right?
Right.
The NBA's viewership in red states might seem down. However, if you go into red states and you go into a bar like young people, you will still find people wearing NBA jerseys, right? They're wearing NBA players' jerseys because the game is still a fantastic game.
Yeah.
They're not watching the game, they're consuming the media, though.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like the viewership is down, but they know absolutely damn well who the hell LeBron James is and Kobe Bryant was and all these kind of things, right? Yeah. Now, the college level, I would say it's like college sports all over the country, right? Red states are like absolutely all over their college sports, right? But what is in my, like, honestly, I'm going to just say it out loud. What's college sports metaphorically? It's athletic slavery, right? These aren't professional. They're professional players not being paid for a job.
Exactly.
Right. And you have a lot of like old school, you know, it's a plantation formula, right? Old school colleges plucking players out with no actual like options in life. And this is the best shot they got to actually get to a career doing what they're doing, where they can be played doing it. And it's like, that's what you're getting a lot of times in red states. There are no professional teams. Your major population centers aren't metropolises. Right? Like in most red states, what's Kansas's biggest city is what, Kansas City? I don't know where Kansas City ranks in terms of cities, but when you go, man, I'm going on vacation to a major city, no one says I'm going to Kansas City.
That's true.
You know, they don't. You get New York, LA, Chicago, you know, Miami's a major city. Yeah. Houston's a comparable city. Yeah. You know, I've heard more people interested in going to Denver than say Montgomery, Alabama, if you're just going to check a place out, right? Like there's absolutely lots of people in red states, but there are actually more of them, I believe, just for population density in blue states. Yeah. Right. There are I know more people in Chicago who went to college in a technical red state, right? Or a traditional red state, like your Michigans or like Ohio's, right? But they didn't move back there. They stayed here.
Oh yeah.
Right. In Chicago, like they stayed in a blue state. Right. So I think college athletics for the major revenue generating sports, red state makes sense, but because in blue states, we have options, right, for our entertainment, even athletically, sports wise. Yeah, fine. You could have, like, you know, the University of Michigan can be the biggest university in Michigan, but they also have the Red Wings, the Tigers, you know, the Lions. Even if those teams aren't good, they're going to have more people watching them than the University of Michigan or Michigan State's going to have, let's say. And the same for Northwestern or DePaul or Loyola or like, or you know, any the University of Illinois. Like, what's happening in Chicago sports wise
Yeah.
will always trump what those schools are doing because we have those options.
Yeah.
But if you're in Alabama, what's Alabama's professional sports team? It's the college football team.
Yeah.
You know, best football team in the country, but still.
Yeah.
You know,
is that
yeah.
where they say go roll tide or whatever?
Yeah, roll tide. Yeah. Roll damn tide.
Yeah.
You know, South Carolina, the Carolinas is the same thing. It's like, you know, you now have a professional football team. You now have a professional basketball team in North Carolina, right? But I'm thinking North Carolina is what they kind of are basing that on. But like in South Carolina, yeah, what do you got? Food.
Yeah, and some real weirdness.
Yeah.
I think there's probably blue islands everywhere and
Sure.
red patches everywhere.
And I'm betting your blue islands like are also centered around your universities.
Yeah, exactly. Like in North Carolina or here in Colorado.
Yeah.
You know? And I think that what we might be talking about really is kind of like a rural urban split, right?
Yeah.
Because I was thinking about this morning with baseball. I have using the MLB TV app. I'm going to have to test this out a bit once the season's fully underway. But you know, I can watch. I watch games in all markets, right? And so I'm watching the Nationals and the Cardinals right now, and all of their ads feature people of color.
Yep.
They have urban settings sometimes. If they're not urban, they're basically like lawns, you know, like suburban, you know, there's a lot of there's a lot of youth and youthful energy injected into the various products. But if I have to go back 2 years because last year was strange, but if I go back 2 years and I think about saying, oh man, you know, I really want to watch Shane Bieber pitch, and I put on a local Cleveland broadcast, I'm going to see a lot of tractors.
Yep.
And insurance. And it really says a lot. I've always looked at that and thought that says to me that they're marketing to people who basically are struggling with a lot of poverty.
Yeah.
And are trying to figure out how to get by. And maybe they're just not, because you know what? I have never seen Game of Thrones, and I wouldn't like it. That's not, but I didn't see The Wire, which I would have loved, but I don't have HBO. And that's the only reason why. I'm just like, I don't have HBO. How many of these you know, rural areas, they don't see Game of Thrones because they don't have HBO. If they had HBO, would they like it? Would the viewer map change, you know, and shift away from the red blue map or not?
Yeah, I think that what would be interesting is if you could present something like Game of Thrones, since now we're at a point where like you need special channels and things, right? When I watched The Wire, it was because it was on Netflix. You know, that's how I saw it at the time, right? It's how I watched Oz. It's how I watched a lot of those, like that golden era of non-broadcast television. Those shows were on HBO Showtime, but then Netflix got everything. So then everyone didn't have a streaming platform. So I watched it on DVD form. And over the years, I've watched it by, you know, downloading this show or that show or whatever, you know, watched a lot of shows that way. But now it does come down to like, if you're in a rural area that is economically depressed, and man, like hypothetically, or rather metaphorically, if you just needed the coal mines open back up, you're probably not trying to pay for 19 streaming services to watch a TV show, right? But a show that's on AMC, I'd be willing to bet that like a lot more people watch the show like Black Sails or something like that than they're watching the shows that are on HBO or your various other Hulu shows or something like that, because they have access to those things. That's also a possibility.
This is making me think that there might be a certain inherent weakness built into this guy's data, like as an assumption that it actually tells us anything, because maybe it doesn't. Right. You know, like you said, if AMC is part of basic cable, you know, people who have basic cable are the ones that are going to be watching Walking Dead far more likelihood than they're watching Game of Thrones.
And I have friends who, you know, subscribe to let's say there's like 5 different streaming services. I have friends who subscribe to 3 of the 5 or 4 of the 5, but not all 5, right? But what that means also is you're dealing with folks with, they've budgeted for it, so it's not the best price value per se, but they've at least made it so they want to watch the things, they want to watch them legally, they want to be able to pay for them, so they're paying for them. And I believe that like they might be taken advantage of because everything's gone to a private service, so now they got you,
Yeah.
And in other places where it's just like, all right, hell, Duck Dynasty is just on free TV, let's just watch that.
Right.
Well, cable we're already paying for, let's say, right? Like,
right.
Let's watch a thing that more resembles people we know instead of like dragons and wizards.
Right.
Like that shakes out for the most part, right? If you got to pay for it,
something about blue voters that just really like fantasy.
Yeah, and like if you work out like just how you get paid to do what you do. I know a lot of people who think red, but are, let's say, in the trades, so they make money. But like if you perceive yourself as physically working hard for money, you probably also might perceive yourself as like not doing a thing that you think other people are doing that's frivolous, let's say.
Right.
Like in video game play, I bet a lot of red staters. I would like to know how many red staters are playing Animal Crossing New Horizons over the last year, right? Like the Nintendo Switch sales went up. It was hard to find one, but like versus Call of Duty, you know what I mean? The Call of Duty style games are more popular, right? Because it appeals to some dudes like sense of power, right? Whereas there's a level of creativity and like kind of cooperation you have to have if you're doing a game like Animal Crossing, let's say, right? So I'm fairly sure it's a similar situation.
You're right. So when I thought about whether, because I know we just have to guess how this plays out in Major League Baseball and with Major League fans and who watches the games, who goes to the games, those are two different things, right? So sticking with who watches the games, how this plays out, I thought maybe there's a mix. And the reason I thought that is because of the role of the Christian churches, who probably have a pretty big say in the cultural life of the red areas.
Yeah.
That's my guess. And a lot of players come from those areas, and they share those same theological values. And they probably bring their hometown or related hometowns with them in terms of viewers. But then there's the other players who might come from different religious backgrounds or different settings. I don't know. I'm really just trying to guess on this.
I find it really interesting in baseball where you are having people for whom they come from areas that will consider themselves to be white and Christian. What Christian is the most important thing to them, but it's the people they don't relate to is the level at which the game has become Latin, right? The game's become so incredibly Latin, but those players also come from deeply religious countries, right? And cultures, right? So you're not bonding over your religiousness at all, right? Like it is viewers looking at the screen and going, there's a lot of brown people on the screen.
Yeah.
Never mind the fact that a good chunk of those brown people on your screen come from a similar religious background to you.
Right.
And you can absolutely relate to them in that way, right? You consider yourself like a poor person who's not privileged, who works for everything. These guys are coming from the Dominican. You are rich compared to them. You know what I mean? Like the game is having trouble getting across that the players on the field might be a lot more similar to the people in the stands than you think.
Yeah.
Right? But like the media has a role to play, and basically, like if you start telling people in hell, even in blue states, you start telling people that this pitcher gets paid $20 million a year and he's gonna go like 14-6 or some shit, right? Or like 14-12, right? Like 14-6 is more impressive than 14-12. You end up with a situation where he's almost a 500 pitcher. Then people are angry at the guy and they don't relate to him at all. Right? Like he's from Georgia, you're from Georgia. He went to the local community college in order to get into the big university there to get drafted. So did you. You just didn't keep playing. Yeah. Right? He's got a pickup truck. You got a pickup truck. He likes, Brad Paisley. So do you. Right? Like you guys are the same dude, only he's just one of the top 800 people to do his job in the world, and you're not.
Right.
Right? But like suddenly, because his results were average for his profession, right? And he gets paid so much money, you now don't relate to the guy. You love him when he's on your team doing awesome and he makes you feel good about being a fan, right? But when he's having a hard time, you can't relate to him because now he's overpaid, right? And I
Okay.
feel like when we add when they start talking about dollars for baseball players, where I think things get screwed, like because fans don't understand that all that is the market, right? Don't think about how much money these guys make. Think about like they're out there trying to do a job, but someone's also trying to keep them from doing a job. That's the competition you're watching, right?
Right. Right.
You're not guaranteed that he's going to have the success every single time.
Right.
Know? I had a customer that I have a customer who I have sports conversations with a lot. You know, she's like a diehard, like all things Chicago sports fan. And I made her really angry one day. We had a kicker in town for the Bears who had missed like a whole bunch of kicks in a game. And he had to make this one kick and then they would have gone to the playoffs. I think it was a couple of years ago. And a dude missed the kick, and it was like kind of like tragic how the dude missed the kick. And he's still probably the most hated man in Chicago sports in the last 10 years because of this one game in which he missed all these kicks and blew this kick where the ball hit the upright and then bounced, but it didn't bounce through. It bounced and hit it hit the crossbar and then bounced back towards the field. Like it was awful, right? And she was in my store. She's like, his job is to make kicks. He gets paid to make kicks. And I was like, well, you know what? That's not actually his job. It would be great if he made those kicks, but his job is to attempt kicks. Right? He's the kicker. They call him on the field to attempt a kick. That's literally the job. Making the kick is a thing that is a skill level issue, right? Considering the strength of his leg, the mental like kind of like ability for him to concentrate, the wind conditions, crowd, whatever the hell, right? There's all these other things that play. But no kicker makes every single kick.
Not at all.
If the job were to make the kick, then as soon as somebody misses one, you got to fire the guy.
Right.
Right? No, the job is to attempt it. What you're looking for is a positive outcome from the attempt.
Right.
And she was so mad at me. But I was like, I'm going to be that guy right now.
Yeah.
Because I feel like in sports, we start putting, in baseball, basketball, football, we start putting these labels on things based on how much money the guy makes and then what the result is for what he makes. He's paid to do this. And it's like, no, it doesn't matter what he's paid. Once they ask him to go out there, he's not going to go out there and throw the ball generally, right? He's the kicker, right? He's not going to go out there and pass it. No one's going to throw it to him, right? No one calls him out on a wide receiver play and like, hey, man, we need a kicker out here. We're going to throw it. We need him to run like hell and catch it and then score a touchdown. No, he's there to attempt a kick. That's all he's there for.
Yep.
And hopefully it goes through.
Yep.
If he misses too many of them, then he'll be fired. But hey, that's what he's there for.
Yeah. Yeah. So in terms of baseball reaching red versus blue voters, it sounds like it might be irrelevant because of the specific ways that fans build relationships with baseball players.
This gets right back to baseball marketing itself horribly.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
This is what this is, right? Stop saying that here's the Atlanta Braves' new $25 million pitcher, right? Because especially at pitchers, you're only pitching once every 5 days if you're a starter. Yeah. So if you blow a start, people look at $25 million and that guy couldn't throw a strike, right? You know, you have a whole week of that bullshit to deal with, you know? Nah, stop doing that. The man signed a contract. His contract is his contract. Let's instead talk about what his tendencies are, right? Let's talk about like the propensity for the slider or the curveball. Show images of that ball breaking, right? Show images of like people swinging at that high heat and missing it. Like put the game back in the context of the game, not in context of his bank account.
Okay.
You do that for everyone playing. If you do that for everybody playing, now fans are literally just looking at the competition. We can talk about their lives if you want to do that, sure.
Yeah. I
just watched a story on Juan Soto on SportsCenter this morning that I thought was awesome. It was things like they did the typical thing, like, you know, grew up dirt poor in the Dominican Republic. But then they also talked about like how he got here, and when he got here to play in A-ball, he was doing very well in A-ball as he moved up through the Nationals organization. But then he said, then I made it to the Major League Club. And I was like, oh man, this is fantastic. I made it to the Major League Club. And he says, the first day I got here, though, I realized something. Holy crap, everybody here speaks English. Like it's the first time he got into any level where it wasn't a bunch of Latin players.
Oh, wow.
Right? It's suddenly like in that first year he was in the majors, he learned English then because it hadn't occurred to him because everywhere along the way somebody spoke Spanish.
That's so interesting.
I found that relatable. Like the man has been very good at what he does for a living up until this point where now he hit a barrier and he has to adjust to it.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's not even like, oh, well, they signed him for X amount of money and the dude he had to go pay himself a hire a translator or hire an English coach or whatever. No, it wasn't that at all. It was that like up until this point, life language wise just worked out for him.
Yeah.
You know? And then so he was laughing about it. He was like, oh man, how am I gonna crap. Because if you think about the team he was on, right? Like he's Trey Turner and Bryce Harper and Anthony Rendon. And like, there's a lot of guys who are generally out there in the field with you who are a bunch of English speakers and Adam Eaton, you know, like, and he's like, shit.
Yeah.
Okay. This is gonna be an adjustment to make, you know? Like there were just things in this story that I found really cool for this guy. And I was like, all right, let's move him up my draft board.
Yeah. Well, saying, you know, he hit a barrier that he had to adjust to. And, you know, for me, it's like anybody who is facing a challenge to the mental game is somebody I can totally relate to.
Yep.
Totally. You know, and so, yeah, more stories of their lives, I think would be huge. Just
and what I like was Jeremy, I think it was Jeff Passan who did this interview, and Jeff Passan never mentioned what Juan Soto made. Right. Yeah. And I was like, perfect. Don't like when a player gets signed, report it. He got signed. But if we keep doing reports in which we're talking about this massive contract that these guys have and how like, you know, so-and-so made 300 million and then the Padres signed another guy for 300 million and then the Boston Red Sox, the LA Dodgers have a $400 million guy. Like if you do that, then that's what fans are going to be thinking about because that's the thing that separates you from that guy the most is their bank account.
Yeah.
If you do that, right?
Right.
Trevor Bauer is actually more relatable for people understanding that he's an asshole. Right? Like he's a tool, man. Like even if he's on your team, you might not like that guy.
Yeah.
But when you do the report that shows kind of how his mental process works and kind of why he's kind of always on edge like that.
Yeah.
He's an asshole, but he's an asshole like somebody you probably know.
Yeah, that's true. And he's an asshole who's capable of doing really embraceable things.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Which is, really makes him like maybe even like how you might secretly see yourself. Yep.
That way, I feel like now we're getting somewhere, right? And then blue state, red state for baseball doesn't matter because when you're at a game, I'll just use like Cubs games as an example. When I've been at Cubs games, and I know like how far left I lean, and I know how many like friends of mine I may have who are like, you know, gay, bi, trans, like people of color, whatever, right? And I think of myself like I basically wherever I go, I'm bringing that with me, right? I'm representing my friends and family wherever I go. I kind of have to be that kind of guy, right? Like I don't just walk in as like the black guy, artist, comic book shop dude, right? You're bringing your friends and experiences wherever you go. But I'm surrounded by people at Cubs games who I probably wouldn't invite anyway. You know, like there's no way these guys, they're drunk in the first damn inning, right? Like, those dudes are not dudes that I would ever really have in my friend circle because not only we're in a major blue city in a major blue state, but the things that you hear coming out of their mouths when you're in the bar after the game, you just, especially during the Trump election cycles, right? Like, you know, these dude bros voted Trump. You just also have to know there aren't that many of them. Right. Okay. But at a baseball game, they're all over the place. They're just concentrated, right? There's 70,000 people in the stands and possibly 5,000 of them are these guys. And they're loud and they're obnoxious and they're creepy as hell, right? They're of a type, right? And you want to think that because this is Chicago and we're in the North, there's not a lot of homophobia and racism you're gonna have to deal with, except that we in Chicago know there is. And there they are at a Cubs game, right? You know, like the owner of the damn team used Wrigley Field to host a political rally for Trump, you know, fundraiser, you know what I mean? And it's like, man, if you really thought about this neighborhood, you probably wouldn't want to do that because our I don't know if you know, like Wrigley Field, it's in Wrigleyville, but also Wrigleyville borders Boys Town. Boys Town's a part of Wrigleyville, or it's a part of Lakeview, depending on how you think about it. But basically, the major neighborhood that is considered like the major gay neighborhood in Chicago is 4 blocks away from Wrigley Field, right? So like doing anything that says to Trump voters, hell yeah, let's go to Wrigley Field, is a slap in the face to people around this community. Right.
I would have been scared because you don't want like a mob being stirred up and they only have to go 4 blocks to beat you up.
And since it was like a fundraiser, it's kind of like, well, most actual on the ground Trump supporters don't have any money.
Oh, okay.
They're not coming to a fundraiser, okay. Right? They'll come to a rally. Okay. They'll come to a rally, but they didn't do the rally or anything like that. Trump tried to have a rally at the University of Illinois at Chicago one year, and then the Chicagoans chased him out of town. The rally never, they tried to have it. It was hilarious. Like, nope. The Chicago showed up, and that was just not happening.
That's good, yeah.
From that moment on, Trump hated Chicago, and every chance he got, that's why he was always ragging on Chicago. It's why he was always like, let's talk about what's going on in Chicago with their gun violence and all this kind of bullshit. It was because Chicago wants to chase him out of town.
Oh, okay.
You know, so yeah, he couldn't get over it. Yeah. That bullshit doesn't fly here. You know.
Yeah.
All right. Let's do some more baseball.
Yes. But I did have one more question about the marketing and the contracts and all that, because it came up, swam to the top of my mind. If baseball were better at marketing itself so that it was connecting fans to players instead of to players' salaries, would that have a positive effect on labor relations within baseball?
I would think probably not. The problem with labor relations in baseball is, on some level, ownership has made it so that anything that the players do is to benefit the ownership, right? For the most part. Yeah. And when players come to get like some sort of just compensation for it, all of a sudden the owners cry broke, right? Like the owners have made it so that it's a completely adversarial situation. And they have to find a way to, the owners don't even tell the players what they really make. You know what I mean? Like, we have a problem where the owners cry broke when it's the benefit of the owners, but the owners never open up the books to see, so the players can see what broke really looks like.
Right.
Right. The players are needed to help market the game. Right. But even that marketing only benefits the ownership. The ownership's not trying to share that with the players. Right. The players will be putting more butts in the seats. Right. They might have more people actually literally watching games, but that just gets eyeballs for the advertisers. Do you know what I mean? Which is money for the players, for the owners. And then the owners are like, well, we didn't make as much money as we thought we would. We can increase salaries by 10%, I guess. You know, bullshit like that. And that just makes it harder for the players to have a relationship that's like a trustworthy relationship with the ownership.
Yeah. You know? Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. There's probably really no way to overcome that.
And the thing you would need is you would need somebody who can talk to the owners. You would need new owners is what you really need. You need like a new ownership group, like some of the old school owners have to go away and new blood has to come in who really sees this as a partnership.
Yeah.
Right. And Major League Baseball owners don't always see it as a partnership.
Right.
You know, if you treat it like it was a true partnership, you need the players need you. Right. The players aren't going and negotiating with various advertisers to bring more money, more dollars to the pool. The players are trying to play baseball. Right. But they're the labor.
Right.
You know.
Okay. Well, let's put that aside then, so that we'll just wait for the strike.
Yeah, wait for because you know it's coming.
Yeah, we'll talk about that when there's actually when that happens, because it will.
Last year they could have played a lot more baseball games than 60, but it was the owners that were the problem.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah.
Okay, so we have. I didn't think we'd talk for an hour about this, but it was cool.
And we got both things in. We got our Game of Thrones and Walking Dead comparisons, as well as baseball marketing, salaries, etc.
Yeah, you know, NBA, college basketball. How red and blue are really different. What this has to do with baseball. Yeah, we did good. So let's preview the season. What do you say?
All right.
I thought about a lot of ways I could do this. You know, the teams that I think are going to win, who's going to win the MVP, who's going to the World Series. I don't know. That's been done to death on plenty of
Yes.
much more reputable platforms than
Sure,
ours,
sure.
more established. I mean, I was interested, I will say, to hear Buster Olney say that he's more interested. He's more. He says he thinks the Angels might actually have what they've been saying they have. So he's interested in the Angels.
All right, that's cool.
And, yep.
I'd love to see that.
Yep. And there's been some really great conversation on his podcast, because he keeps bringing it up about the Brewers. A lot of people are kind of more in on the Brewers than you'd expect.
Right.
They think the Brewers are going to make something happen. And I also heard him interview one of the television broadcasters for the Phillies, and it made me think, you know what? They're going to be a good team.
Yeah.
So we can think about like 3 national divisions that are going to be really competitive, and maybe in the NL East, like so competitive that it's just going to be a screamingly interesting season. Just if you just said I'm doing nothing but National League East.
Yeah, like the NL East is going to be, that's where, like, okay, so we'll start there. And my NL East storyline generally is, I am always afraid that teams that show up and just start spending like mad when they don't normally spend like mad are making a mistake. So I'm worried that the Mets aren't going to be as good as the budget would say they are, let's say.
Yeah, okay.
Right? I want bounce backs from some guys, and I want success for some guys, but I'm really concerned that new owner, thankfully he came in and he opened to the pocketbooks and he's trying to improve that team. I'm just not entirely sure that buying yourself an all-star team is going to be a thing that works long-term.
Okay.
Right? Like a lot of times what I see in other sports, like in basketball, when this happens, that first year is figuring shit out.
Yeah.
Right? The second year you've got it figured out and you can just go for it.
Yeah.
Right? To me, it's why the Dodgers took it's why they won last year, but not any of the previous years.
Right.
Right? Because they are loaded with talent left, right, and center, and they're willing to go out and buy it. Yeah. But just doing that part of it isn't always what's going to work.
Yeah, you have to put the whole thing together. Yeah.
Luckily, they got they added Mookie Betts. Right? Adding Mookie Betts absolutely didn't hurt them.
Yeah.
Right? But like finally, you had a team that was good enough to do that thing.
Yeah.
Right? But you had a whole lot of pieces there that should have been good enough and weren't.
Yeah.
You know?
That's true. And I guess you just keep going out there year after year and you say, okay, what have we got? Okay, what's missing? And then you move that. Now pieces move on you, right?
Yes.
Like they get hurt or they slump or whatever, things happen, right? And you keep doing it until you get that one beautiful, remarkable season when you put all the things together. Yeah. And that's one of the reasons why I hate to make predictions before the season starts, is because I know how mercurial teams can be in terms of how they put themselves together and what happens as a team.
And this is why I think that the Mets won't win it, but there's a great chance for the Marlins to do better than people think they will.
There is, yeah.
Because they made the playoffs last year. Now they have experience there.
Yeah, exactly.
The Atlanta Braves will still be good.
Yes.
Right? And the Washington Nationals are still there.
Yes.
So it might finish Nationals, Mets, Marlins, right? Like it might finish that way, but it might also finish Nationals, Braves, Mets, Marlins. Yep. But like Phillies, they might all be separated by like a couple games.
What if it's Braves, Phillies, Nationals, Mets? Would that surprise you?
That would be probably more like I really have expected to be. Like I expect the Mets to have all kinds of growing pains coming out of the gate.
Right.
Right. And what you're really going to know is like they talk about that first month of the season kind of really matters. And I think this year more than any other year, it's going to matter.
Yeah.
I feel like the way that everybody's NCAA brackets exploded with all the number one teams, like just kind of getting bounced out and getting their asses kicked. COVID year had a lot of players sit out, but a lot of those players are coming back. So there's a chemistry thing that we don't know about.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
We have a lot of players who are still kind of physically working themselves back into shape post-COVID.
Yes.
Right. Like some of these, and now you're going to play a full season. This is going to be real interesting for some guys. So I'm wondering if like it's not going to be as cut and dry as people think it is. Right. Like you might be able to say in the AL East, like Boston would be at the bottom. Okay. If Boston's at the bottom, the teams who are above them aren't going to be 30 games ahead.
The Orioles will be at the bottom.
Oh, that's a good point. The Orioles are still there.
I'm so sorry to have to say that, but it's just that's just a foregone conclusion. We already know that.
Boston can say we're not the Orioles.
Yeah, yeah, that's what you can always say. I mean, I figured you didn't say Orioles at the bottom because you weren't bothering to count them. You were thinking about the top four teams.
Sometimes when it's the worst team, like I do, I tend to think about things in terms of top 3 or 4. When
Yeah.
somebody's like the worst team, it's like, man, I can't just, yeah, all right, like I can't, yeah, I can't put you there. The Rangers, I can't be like, ooh, look at those Rangers. The Rangers are they're gonna surprise us. No, you're not.
NL Central.
NL Central, what I've seen out of the Cubs is actually kind of surprising. You know, I don't want to say Cubs win the division. I might still be at like the Cubs Brewers neck and neck for that division, and then neck and neck with the Cardinals.
Yes.
With the Reds on the outside looking in, you know what I mean?
Yes.
Like that kind of thing.
That's what I'm expecting. And oddly enough, what year do we not expect that? I mean, since the Brewers established themselves, I mean, it used to be, oh, well, it'll be the Cardinals and the Cubs. And then the
question for the Cubs offensively is Jock Peterson going to put together a whole season like he put together a spring?
Yeah.
Right? Like if Jock Peterson right now is playing with, there was a point a couple years ago where the Cubs ended up with Nick Castellanos from the Tigers.
Right.
And Nick Castellanos played so damn well down the stretch that I thought they needed to sign that dude. Right. Because he needed to be on this team every day and be playing because he just fit. He fit the way that like Dexter Fowler fit. Right? Like things are going to work out well with this guy in your lineup. Well, the Cubs didn't re-sign him, and they still had this thing where it's like, there's an offensive hole here somewhere, right? Jock Peterson last year as a Dodger had points in that season where he was like amazing. But then he just kind of stopped being amazing and just started being good old Jock Peterson again.
Yeah.
He became a platoon player all over again.
Yeah.
And it's not just that the playing time wasn't there where he could play every day. It was that his play itself dipped back down again, right? Yeah. If he could put that together for an entire season, he becomes indispensable, right? Which would help the Cubs tremendously.
Yeah.
Right?
So the question is, how high is his motivation score?
And how, like, what's his actual ceiling? And what's that thing that, like, you know, some players figure it out by, like, changing their diet slightly.
Yeah,
you know,
right.
Let's drop 10 pounds, put on some muscle, you know, let's go gluten-free during the season. You know what I mean? Like, that works for some guys.
Yeah,
you know, They try something different, you know, and that's what they do, and it works out. And I'm hoping that for Jock Peterson, I really like him as a player. So I liked him as a Dodger. I thought he was a great guy to have. He seems like a fifth outfielder or fourth outfielder, or whatever. But then when he's on, you got to have him in the lineup.
Right.
You know?
So NL West seems kind of obvious.
Padres.
Yeah.
I'm going Padres. The Dodgers are the obvious choice.
Oh, gosh.
Right? But I love that the Padres just don't give a shit that the Dodgers are in that division. They do not care.
True. That's true.
The Padres strike me as like the most bloodthirsty team. Right. If the Yankees were in a division, they'd be like, screw the Yankees, let's go get them. The Padres are like the Nationals of the NL West. You know what I mean? Of the West Coast. They don't care that you're supposed to be better than them.
All right. Okay.
Here they come. You know,
any better.
They're like the way the Rays played last year in the playoffs.
Oh my goodness.
The Padres play like that all the time.
With that rotation.
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah. And I got to cheer for that. Right. Yeah. I got to cheer for that. It might be that the Dodgers are the best team on the West Coast. They might just be, right? For sure, they got Mookie Betts and now Trevor Bauer, right? So that's real. And they still have Cody Bellinger, right? That's absolutely a thing. But the Padres don't care.
Right.
Right? And now they've got Yu Darvish and Blake Snell, right? So like they're matching you pitcher for pitcher.
Yeah, they don't have to care.
Yeah, they'll fight you in the parking lot, I feel like, you know. The Padres would meet the Dodgers in a club and challenge them to a dance contest. Like, I think they would do anything to compete with them and try to beat them at anything.
All right,
and I got to respect that.
Who would win that dance contest?
The Padres.
Obviously.
They have your boyfriend Nando.
Yeah, he can dance. That guy can dance. I had some game on recently, and they were doing in between the innings clips and this and that. And Steve must have looked up and looked at the screen, and he said, you should go to some of those guys for dance lessons. I'm like, hell yeah.
Of course, right? Who wouldn't?
Yeah, I want to do that, you know. Oh, they do some fun stuff.
Have
And
you have you watched Juan Soto? Have you watched Juan Soto do his like Juan Soto shuffle in the batter's
no, I don't
box?
think so. I don't think
Okay,
so.
when we're done, go and look up some of Juan Soto's batter's box antics to intimidate pitchers.
Okay.
Yeah, it's very smooth and dancey,
You know,
and
I definitely want to
almost
do
like
right.
martial arts kata like the
Yes,
way that he
yes,
does this thing trying to intimidate pitchers. It's
yes.
hilarious.
No, you're right. I think I have seen one or two of those, and he keeps this face of total childlike innocence
Yes,
on while
yes,
he's doing it. Me, I'm just getting more comfortable.
yeah.
I'm a good guy. Yeah.
And why are you mad at me? You're mad at me for this. Why are you mad at me?
I'm so young and cute.
Right.
I love it. And you know what? I don't think Nando's going to be my boyfriend this year. I think he's going to be one of my favorite players because he's so electric, but he's lost the pink. So
Oh yeah.
I don't have that pink yellow contrast that has such an emotional effect on me, you know?
Yep.
I like the yellow brown a lot. Like, oh, I think the Padres look stellar this year. Best uniforms in baseball.
Yep.
But no more boyfriend stuff. So that's just a loss, but I can find another boyfriend. So that's not a problem. All
You
right.
probably will. Yeah, I'm sure you will.
Let's stay on the West. Let's say AL West.
Not the Mariners.
I'm sorry.
Man.
You're right. You're right.
The A's.
What was your first thought when Kalnich was sent down?
Well, like I kind of feel like the Mariners are largely waiting for like multiple prospects to be ready at one time.
Interesting.
Do you know what I mean? Like having one major prospect come up to join your team now while you're still going to probably lose 80 games. Like, I don't know, right? Like, yeah. I think they're waiting for two guys to be ready at the same time while also having a new CEO in place and all these other things with all this bad press you got over the winter. You know, yeah. So my Mariners problem is I need the Mariners to keep their heads down, stay out of the news, right? And then bring up the equivalent of Javi Baez and Chris Bryant at the same time. Okay. And I'll be okay with that.
Okay.
You know?
I'd like to see that, actually. I'd like to see the Mariners on the national stage. I think that would be fantastic.
And it's only going to happen if they like have several young prospects come up together.
Yes.
And like and play well.
Yeah. Okay.
And Lord knows they've been bad for so long. They've got good prospects.
Okay. Okay. And so not the Mariners and probably not the Rangers.
So the A's and it's the A's and the Astros are the class of that division, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I guess we'll wait and see if Buster Olney's right. If there's something going on with the Angels that we need to watch.
Yeah. I feel like, yeah, the Angels, because of the firepower they have, right? Uh-huh. But also like the Astros with like one more full year, something to prove, right? Like, I think that kind of matters out there. But the A's just get to be steady.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, and with the Astros, you get to watch Zach Greinke, and there's nothing wrong with that at all.
There's nothing wrong with that. That's true.
Something to look forward to. All right, so AL Central.
White Sox and Twins.
Yeah.
Yeah. And my only White Sox concern is Eloy Jimenez is a big bat to lose out of your lineup for the year, right? But like the way the team plays, right? Like you lose him, but you get Moncada back, let's say, right? Like there's other things that are going to happen. Another year, Luis Robert.
That's right.
So there's benefits that are going to happen here that can still keep you in games.
That's right. And I think that I would like to retract everything I've said about Tony La Russa to date.
Okay. I'm not there yet.
I think I want to say that that I'm got nothing to say. I want to see how things accrue.
Right.
That's fair. In terms of his track record and his relationship with the team. I want to let it happen. I don't want to say I know what's going to happen. You know, I heard probably just a clip of an interview with him a couple of weeks ago, and it made me stop and think for just a minute about, and I think it was something that he said actually, and that's why I thought, you know what, I might be back liking La Russa. He said that the players know what to do. The players know how to play.
Yeah.
They know what to do.
Yeah, I think I heard that. And I feel like that's a good way to look at it because that's really what you want. Like you want him.
And then you say, well, you know,
the manager shouldn't be in the way.
Yeah. And what is the manager for? The manager has the big picture who can make sure that the players get to do the most that they can do in order to
Right.
win, you know?
Right.
So he's just like, I'm big picture guy. I don't need to go in and tell somebody where to stand or how to play or how to conduct himself, or, you know, I don't need to like mess with these relationships, you know, it's just, I'm just going to see big picture. Our team is good at this, their team is good at that. How are we going to make this happen? And
Yeah.
I'm wondering if that isn't what made him so good with that so good Cardinals team. You know, when you have a team that good, what's on you to make them win?
And I could see how players play for Tony La Russa because the dude's kind of a bulldog, right? Like,
Oh, he is.
he
Yeah.
has an attitude about him. Like, what a part of the Tony La Russa problem wasn't just the DUIs that like nobody was aware of and all that, but really it's that you fired the guy who just got you to the playoffs, who keeps getting fired to bring in the more famous guy, right? Like that was really the issue. It's like, man, I felt bad for that dude.
Yeah.
Like, man, again?
Yeah.
This has happened twice in Chicago to this guy?
That was a shame. I mean, especially because that was Edgar Renteria, right? No, not Edgar.
Ricky Renteria.
Ricky Renteria. Yeah, Edgar was the player, ironically, on those Cardinals
teams.
And then the Giants.
Yep.
He was a winner, that guy. Ricky, by all accounts, is just a good baseball guy and a good manager. So what, you know?
Yeah.
Why fire the guy?
And you keep and it comes down to people wanting to say, like, you know, or the owner of the team or whoever saying or believing that like he's good, but he couldn't get them over the hump.
Yeah.
But it's like, they get them over the hump. This is the first year they've been this close.
Exactly. And
you know,
part of that hump was Luis Robert with a broken foot, right?
So. Yep. Right. Yes.
That's nobody's fault. That stuff.
Part of your hump is not having one of your pitchers who throws 103 miles an hour for the entire season.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Like this is the hump you got to get over. You need a full damn team.
Yep.
You know?
I know Alder and I had different takes on Lucas Giolito because I thought maybe his mental game wasn't there. I've decided to be less judgmental about that as well.
Okay.
Especially if La Russa thinks Giolito's mental game is there, then who am I to say it isn't?
Well, I think that for Giolito's mental game, the thing that's a real benefit is they this year have a new pitching coach.
Ah, okay. Yeah.
They don't have Don Cooper. Don Cooper is a guy that was here for like 25 years or whatever. And Don Cooper was kind of famous for when you ask him a question about like a pitcher or how a pitcher's doing or whatever, he either goes, oh, he's fine. Don't worry. You don't got to worry about that guy. That guy's fine. Or I don't know. I haven't talked to him. Like, what?
Yeah.
You know, everyone just can't be fine because you don't want us criticizing the guy.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But like you also aren't talking to him. What the come on, man.
Well,
so this guy,
he might have been being diplomatic. I know he was always famous for being excellent at
Don Cooper drove me nuts.
Yeah. So a new pitching coach could, and somebody that Giolito has a relationship with, an existing relationship with, that's really helpful.
Yeah.
All right. And I'm concerned about the Twins. We'll see. Not as crazy about them this year as I have been in the past.
Well, they still have a pretty formidable lineup, and like I think that the Twins' biggest issue is they don't play in a major city like Las Vegas or something.
Yeah, but right? What about their rotation? Like, do you think that they have the pitching to pull it off?
I think they have the pitching to keep games close.
Okay.
Right, like and everyone else in that division has a flaw somewhere, right?
That's
like
true.
So you might win some games. Like, 5-4, you might lose some games 5-4,
right.
But they're not going to win a whole bunch of games 10-1.
Right.
Right. There's a lot of that. It's the same problem Cleveland has, right? Like Cleveland has bats. They have some pitching, right? Yeah. But like, if you could remove one of the good teams from your division and put them somewhere else, Cleveland's a lot better off.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So I would rather see the pressure be on the hitters than on the pitchers for getting through the tight games. And so that's all right then. That's all right. Tigers.
Whew.
Yes, I know, but it does seem like they are growing something now.
I will watch. I can. What the Tigers have is the ability to make me like look at young players and get excited for young players coming up.
Yes.
Right. Because like, how it is in baseball is one of these things where like the tide shifts kind of generationally as like some players retire, new players come up, and then suddenly teams that you remember being perennial doormats are all of a sudden in the World Series. like 3 years out of 5,
Exactly.
and so many franchises kind of happen to by virtue of young prospects coming up and basically being able to play, right? And this is going to happen to the Tigers at some point. It's going to pay off. It paid off for the Cubs. It paid off for the Red Sox.
It did.
Paid off for the Dodgers. The Dodgers had a lot of losing seasons.
Yeah,
right?
Paid off for the Astros.
Totally paid off for the Astros.
Totally
so
paid off for the Astros.
The problem we always have, though, is while they're bad, it's hard to envision when they will be good again.
That's right. That's right.
Right? A couple years ago, I wouldn't have believed the Braves were as good as they are. That's
true.
Or the Blue Jays with their entire team of second-generation players.
It sure feels like it. So
it's a second-generation team plus George Springer.
I saved AL East for last.
Yeah, Blue Jays. I want the Blue Jays. I want my Vlad Guerrero, Bo Bichette, Kevin Biggio, George Springer, top of the division, followed by the Yankees, followed by the Rays.
We had a in my perfect world fantasy conversation last time or the time before about the AL East being dominated this season by Rays and Jays.
Yeah. At the time we had that conversation, George Springer hadn't signed.
That's right. But Kirby Yates hadn't gone down.
Yeah. Right.
He hadn't signed, plus he hadn't gone down.
The Kirby Yates thing is also that's like an all-star level closer that you won't have for a while.
Yeah.
And I didn't look and see what else they got, but they got to figure that out.
Yeah, you never know what they're going to come up with, but I would still love a world in which Jays and Rays dominate the AL East for a while, just because those are cool names. And
I kind of also want this for the Blue Jays because they're not really going to be playing much in Toronto, right? Like they're going to be like in Buffalo or whatever the hell that is, playing that spring training like ballpark.
It gives them what they call a grudge or a chip on their shoulder or whatever, which could really be helpful for teams coalescing into teams. That secret thing that we're constantly alluding to, that could happen for them. Everybody's saying that the Yankees are the presumptive favorites.
The Yankees are always a presumptive favorite.
Yes, just by virtue of being the Yankees.
Yeah, just by being the Yankees. You know what I mean? It's kind of like,
but
I can see that.
Is their pitching all right?
I think it's better than all right. I think their pitching's very good. Okay. But like it's also, is their pitching gonna hold up?
Right.
They got guys, they don't have that pitching staff ain't a bunch of guys on their third or fourth year.
Right.
That pitching staff is filled with people who accomplish things elsewhere.
Right.
And now you're hoping that they stay like vertical.
Right. Yeah.
You're hoping that their arms don't fall off, man.
It's a long season. Like you were saying.
Something happens to Garrett Cole, they're screwed.
Yeah.
It's going
to be a long season for some of these guys.
Yeah. They don't have 4 Garrett Coles. They have 1 Garrett Cole.
That's right. They do have a Garrett Cole, but he can't win every game. Right?
No.
Yeah.
He can only pitch once every 5 days.
Yeah. So he's another contract too, That's another place where they could, because Garrett Cole seems like he's a pretty great guy.
Yeah.
I think you could build a relationship between him and the fans outside of the building, pretty well. I think pretty well. Red Sox and Orioles are just non-factors this season.
Probably, I think there's going to be some kids who come up for the Red Sox and the Orioles who you're going to be like, oh, damn, I like this kid, right? Yeah. But like next year is going to be the year they'll beat somebody.
Yeah. So the question for me really is, who are the Rays this year? I just want to see that.
That's a big question too, because there's no reason that it'd be great if they're the team that you saw last year in the playoffs.
Yeah.
The likelihood of them and the Marlins have the same issue. The likelihood of those 2 teams are what you saw in the playoffs all year long this year, pretty small. So it's great if it happens. Fantastic baseball story. It's unlikely, All
right. So my biggest takeaway from spring is a takeaway about myself. It's kind of interesting. After all this time watching spring training games and thinking about baseball coming back, I've realized that I got into the habit over the past few years, it crept over me, where I got to the point where I was following players instead of teams. Mm-hmm. And so if I hankering to see a certain player, like I needed me some Mookie Betts time, I'd watch the Dodgers.
Yeah.
Famously, if Scherzer was starting, I was there at that game. I was not physically, but I was watching that game for sure. Would not miss the Scherzer start. And I still have that kind of love for and fascination for, like my set of favorite players. It's not like that will go away, but I was thinking in spring about how transient it all is. And, given injuries and given COVID, sort of what this past year's done to each of us personally, think I'm looking at baseball players as having a certain level of fragility that I don't think I ever noticed before. It's always been there. They aren't suddenly more fragile. I just said I wasn't looking at it.
Yeah.
And given that, I think I'm likely this year to focus more on teams. Not that I have a favorite. I don't actually have a favorite team, but I'm more inclined to follow sort of the baseball narrative in terms of what teams are doing instead of what players are doing.
Mm-hmm.
That I think is what I noticed. That's my major takeaway from spring and how I am thinking about the upcoming year.
Sure.
Yeah.
My spring takeaway is I don't know if I'm trusting anything I'm seeing because of like the whole COVID situation and like the everything is new, right? Everything's just different now, right? I don't know what I'm seeing and if I can trust it. So I don't think it matters what I saw it all during the spring until the regular season happens. Then that will be the real thing.
Yeah.
Other years in spring training, it's like, oh, look at these guys just working on the thing, right? Oh yeah, he's getting shelled because he's trying to figure out if he can fix his changeup,
Right.
Now it's like, man, I don't know if that dude's good because he's good. I don't know if he's good because like somebody's missing. I don't know what the hell's happening here, Yeah.
Well, they may not know either. That might be kind of a version of the same fragility that I'm seeing and feeling, like who's still standing in August? August is the second most exciting month of the season. Obviously, September is the most exciting. August, second most exciting. Who's still there in August? I'm going to be really interested to see that.
Agreed.
Yeah.
All right. This is going to be great.
When's the season start? We got some more let's see, trademark social cultural conversation in.
We're trying to fix the world.
We are. We're working on it real hard. And we have a pretty good sense. I don't think there's anybody in the world who will disagree with anything we just said about the
how could they
the divisions. Yeah.
How could they?
Yeah, how could we? We managed to prove that we know exactly what we're talking about.
Which day this week do we get our first game?
Thursday.
All right.
Yeah. I know the disadvantage of being a small business owner is you can't just say, well, I'm going to close up for the day and watch baseball.
Well, what we used to do pre-COVID was me and my friends Jenny and Rebecca, every opening day, I would, if it was on a Monday, then I'd be closed anyway.
Yeah.
Right. But if it wasn't a Monday and they were playing home games, we would go to a bar. Me, Jenny, and Rebecca, we met for the first time in a bar, and I think it was opening day. That's like, we knew each other from the internet, but we hadn't met before. We decided to physically meet and watch a baseball game. Right. And now we're like best friends. Right. So every year at opening day, me, Jenny, and Rebecca go to watch a game from that same bar. Well, that bar doesn't exist anymore anyway. Right. It was sold and then tried to become something else. And, nobody liked it. So yeah, we don't go. We would probably have picked just a different bar if it weren't a COVID situation.
Yeah.
But that's what we would do. And if the store were open when that was happening, I would just get somebody to cover for me for the afternoon. That was kind of like the way, that was like our baseball tradition is whenever Cubs opening day is, we just, let's hit this place, go hang out for the day, eat like a bunch of mozzarella sticks and fried pickles and shit, and then drink some beers. And hopefully it's a good day. And if they lose, then we'll call some other friends to come hang out and meet us, yeah. But we've been doing that for maybe, I don't know, it felt like we kind of met right after I opened the store. So like 2008, 2009, somewhere in there.
Wow.
So we've been doing it like 10 years or so, more or less.
So what's your alternative this year? Do you have one?
I'm going to see if I can watch any games from the store, if there's any way to do that, right? But there's not I can't now at this point, there's no bars that I feel comfortable sitting in watching a game.
Yeah, I wouldn't either.
So I'm going to skip all that. Yeah.
Okay.
I'll just be watching my fantasy baseball page, like stat check.
Okay.
I'll do that.
I took the day off from work.
Yeah, cool. And you can just watch from home.
I'm going to see how many games I can watch, at least part of, because I can see all of them, right?
Yeah.
Because I got the app. but also just for fun, I treated myself to a month of YouTube TV so that I can have ESPN and MLB Network for a month.
That's a thing that I do during the season is I wake up and just put the MLB Network on.
Yeah.
I watch like what is it? There's MLB Central or whatever.
Yeah,
Whatever
exactly.
the show is. I watch that in the mornings because like those guys are hilarious. Like
They are.
just find the way they present the game to
Yeah.
be like very palatable, like a lot of fun, a lot of insight.
Yeah.
Like Mark DeRosa is a better baseball analyst, color guy than I would have ever thought he was.
I know.
He's fantastic to hear. Or like any of the shows, like I watch Baseball Tonight because I like Greg Amsinger a lot, and Dan Plesac and all those guys. They Harold Reynolds, if he's on, like he's a good analyst. So like all that stuff. I watch.
Oh, what about when they have Pedro Martinez on? Oh my God.
Pedro's so good.
Oh, he's so good.
Pedro is so good.
Yeah, I feel like I'm learning at the feet of the master. It's like so lucky to have him. Yeah.
Or Carlos Delgado, when Carlos Delgado's on,
that's
like,
right,
talking about hitting, it's like, oh man, this dude's good. Like,
yeah,
love hearing these guys talk about this.
Hang up, I know we're going to, but I have a question about hitting, and I'm just going to go ahead and ask it because Sunday will be all about the baseball. Sure. Question about hitting, and I was thinking about this just watching Carlos Pena this morning. He was giving a hitting lesson on MLB Central, but I didn't have a sound on, so I don't quite know what he was talking about. It just got me thinking. There are the guys that can hit to all parts of the field. Yeah. And they're the guys that pretty much only hit to one part of the field, right?
Yeah.
I'm thinking for a lot of them, it's dependent on handedness, right? So if you're left-handed hitter and you don't have a lot of, you tend to hit to right field. And if you're a right-handed hitter, you tend to hit to left field unless you have some other skills that you've developed.
Which is a body control issue. You need to develop some extra body control. Yeah.
For those guys that can hit, like they're talking about batter's eye these days, they like to see the guys that can hit like straight out there, you know, to center field. You can hit right, you hit left. You can hit where you know you're going to be most effective, as opposed to where your hand sends the ball. What controls that? Is it the arm that is in front? So like say I'm a left-handed batter, I have my right arm here. I know I'm hitting with both hands because otherwise you couldn't hit the ball that hard. You can't, nobody's doing that, right? I'm hitting with both hands, but do I control the trajectory of the ball as it launches off my bat based on what the front arm does? Or is it some other part of my body?
For me, when I'm hitting and I want to hit the ball to, when I'm trying harder to hit the ball to say right field, when I want to not pull the ball, what I'm very conscious of doing is opening up my body first before my hands come through the strike zone, opening up my body first so that more of my body is already facing the pitcher. And then I bring my hands through. And as I bring my hands through, I am using the bottom hand in the way it works, in the way I'm envisioning it. I'm not using the lower hand to generate extra power. Like when I'm drumming, a lot of the power in drumming comes from your pinky and middle and ring fingers, right? Like a kind of creating this kind of flicking motion to generate more downforce on your stick. Hitting to me kind of works similar. You're using that lower hand to kind of pull through, right? In which case then you're generating more power and the ball is going to go further wherever you want it to go. But if you're trying to hit to the opposite field, it is opening up my body, and I'm thinking of my top hand technique, right? Because I don't need to now pull the bat through like as hard as I would before. What I want is to have my body open, have the bat come through a little later.
Okay.
Have the head of the bat come through a little later than it would normally come, fraction of a second later, and then bring it through, right? Not as great a chance the trajectory is off towards left field.
All right. So right? It's which of your hands you're giving more control over what
I'm giving. I think in my head it feels like it's more of my top hand, but when I'm swinging the bat, it feels like it's all working together. The thing that I concentrate the most on is where I'm placing my front foot, my left foot, and how it's helping me get my hips and my chest open in order to do that. Right? Because if I do all that, getting my hips and chest open, and I try to pull the ball to left field, like I'm naturally inclined to do, I'm more than likely going to foul the ball over the third baseman's head.
And that's if you open up too far.
If I open up too far, right? Okay. I'm now the ball's going in somebody's dugout, right? Okay. Like it's going to go too far in this direction to the left, and I don't want that. Okay. Right? I want to stay. If I want center field or left field, I want to stay centered and squared up with the plate, right?
Okay.
Pitcher's where he's supposed to be. And I want to twitch my hips open and bring my hands through to have the barrel of the bat out in front of the plate when I make contact, right? But if I'm going to right field, the barrel of the bat doesn't have to be quite out in front. It can be a bit more over the plate, right? As it comes when I make contact. And this is easier to do if I've got my chest and hips open.
Okay.
Right? Because now my power is being generated differently, I guess at a different point.
Yes, okay. No, this answers the question, because I'm amping up my waltz to a whole new level, right?
Okay.
And it's really amazing because, you know, first you got to get your feet figured out, and then you have to get your ankles figured out, and then you have to get like your axis figured out, you know, and then you got to get your head figured out. And when you start working on your head, your feet forget about being figured out, or your ankles kind of
you've changed something. Something has changed.
And then once you get like head and feet pretty well stable and in conversation, then you got to start thinking about your shoulders. And once you get your shoulders figured out, well, now I'm working on rib cage, right? So it's like you keep that, but you know, little parts of your body fall out as you're working on some other part until you finally get everything working together, like you said. And then at that point, you can't say to somebody, oh, well, you know, as long as you get your rib cage, everything else is fine, because it's not. You have to have, everything has to know how to work together. And so then if you want to change something, you have to make sure that everything knows how to change together, right? And that I think is how I can relate to this level of hitting. You know, that if you say, well, you know, I'm a pull hitter and I want to be able to spray around the field. What do I have to change? Okay, everyththing.
Yes, all of it.
So
you have to do it. And so the reason that so many players are pull hitters is because they have so much success doing that thing that it's already gotten them the job. Right. So now tinkering with it is going to mess up your effectiveness all over the place. But if you start early with it, it's kind of like, then it becomes the same kind of muscle memory as your pull hitter. Right now, you don't have to worry about where's my foot, where's my hips, where's my elbows, like all that. You don't have to start thinking about it. Your body goes to the place it's supposed to go because you've done this so many times before.
Because you get this just total drilling, you know. But you say, well, you know, I'm gonna hit this one to right field. I'm gonna hit this one to far right field. I'm gonna hit.
And it also matters like where the pitcher's pitching, right? You're not seeing a lot of guys hitting the opposite field when the pitcher's pitching in on their hands.
That's right.
You know what I mean? Like that's like now you got to get your entire ass body out of the way,
right,
to get the barrel on the ball in such a way to get it to opposite field. But if he's pitching you in, just take that inside pitch and go ahead and pull that.
Yeah.
Right. That is the most likely outcome, and you're probably going to be better at doing that thing. Right?
Okay, that's
but pulling a ball thrown like high and outside, right? That's going to be a lot harder to do.
Yeah.
Right. Like the way the end of the bat is the last thing to come through that strike zone. Pulling that through fast enough to get that ball to go for me into left field is going to be very difficult. So you're either going to let that pitch go because it's more likely a ball anyway, right? You can let that pitch go, or you're going to just go ahead and let that pitch go to right field if you hit it. You know.
And you got to know in the moment what to do.
Yeah, I think for me, hitting had always been a situation of my attitude when I would go up to the plate was I'm going to get a hit. He's going to throw it. He's going to have to throw it where he wants it to be a strike, right? And this is in baseball or softball. This pitcher wants this to be a strike. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm taking the first pitch. Let's just see. I will take the first pitch. I don't mind. I have no problem with that, right? Aha. Now you're confident that if that first pitch was a strike, you're confident you can get that over. You think you can do that again, right? Okay. I'm going to get a hit one way or the other. So whatever you throw me, wherever it happens to be, when I see one that I think I can hit, I'm swinging at that pitch to hit that pitch, right? And I'll let it go where it has to go. I only ever worried about like kind of the hitting the opposite field thing if it was like a case of there were times which there'd be like a runner on first base, let's say, and I wanted to give that runner a better chance at like getting to second base. I might hit to right field because I want that fielder thinking about me, not my runner. And I was a fast runner, so I'm likely going to make it. I'm making it to first base, right? But I'd rather there be both of us then. If I hit it to left field, there's a greater chance that they're just going to go for the force out.
Yeah.
And I don't really want that outcome, right? I want the outcome of what's supposed to be on base. And most people aren't expecting an opposite field hit. So that's kind of what I would tend to want to try to do, is the way I would think about it. Right? What's the person in front of me is fairly fast, but like I want to give them the best chance possible to stay on base. Let me then not pull the ball in this situation.
Yeah.
If I pull the ball, I'm pulling it right to a defender who is absolutely thinking of going to second base with that ball.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Like that's the further. In fact, they're going to be probably running towards second base when I do that.
Right.
I don't want that.
Yeah,
I want a chance at freezing the outfield. Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know what? Next time we can talk about the difficulty level involved in being a pitcher, or we can talk about this for like the rest of our lives. There is a huge, I mean, the difficulty level involved in being a major league hitter is something that we just barely scratched it.
Yeah,
man, it is really, 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 really hard. So this
all of these guys, the guy at the end of the bench on a baseball team, the dude at the far end of the bench on a baseball team is better at hitting baseballs than us. Right? He hits foul balls that look amazing compared to what we're gonna do. Yeah.
Oh man, thinking about a lot of stuff. All right. So I will sign us out, my friend.
All right.
And we'll be back next week.
Absolutely.
With 3 days worth of notes. And all the news is fit to print.
Yep.
All right. Thanks so much for listening to yet another episode 20 of Dropped Third Strike, coming to you from Denver/Chicago with my friend Terry Gant. This is Beth Davies-Stofka signing off for today and reminding everybody to please, now more than any time, turn into the love.
Turn into the love. Thank you, Beth.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.